More knowledge? JustProfessor here. You think you do more work than your coworkers. You think you contribute more to your relationship than your partner. You think you're more fair and reasonable than everyone around you. But here's the truth. Everyone thinks that about themselves, and you're all wrong. Your brain is lying to you about your own importance. Ask couples to estimate what percentage of housework each person does. Add up their answers, and you'll get way more than 100%. Both people genuinely believe they do more than half. Ask team members to estimate their contribution to a group project. Everyone thinks they carried more weight than the others. This isn't people lying or being arrogant. It's egocentric bias. Your brain automatically overestimates your own contributions, your own importance, and your own perspective in any situation. And this bias is creating conflicts, resentment, and misunderstandings in every relationship you have. Egocentric bias is when you view the world primarily from your own perspective and overestimate your role in events, your contributions to outcomes, and the validity of your own viewpoint. You remember your own actions more clearly than others' actions. You're more aware of your own effort than others' effort. You feel your own pain more than you can imagine others' pain. This creates a distorted view where you seem more central and important than you actually are. This happens because you have complete access to your own experiences but only partial access to others' experiences. You feel every bit of effort you put in. You know every sacrifice you made. You remember every time you helped. But other people's efforts happen outside your direct awareness. You see the results, but not all the work behind them. So your own contributions feel larger and more significant than others' contributions, even when they're equal, or when others actually did more. The problem is, this creates unfair judgments and unnecessary conflicts. You feel underappreciated because you think you do more than you actually do. You judge others as lazy or unhelpful because you're blind to their full contributions. You think disagreements happen because others are unreasonable, not recognizing that you're being just as stubborn from your egocentric perspective. This bias is poisoning relationships, teams, and any collaborative effort. Let me show you where this ruins things. Household chores are a classic example. Both partners in a relationship typically believe they do more than their fair share of housework. They're both wrong, but they're both sincere. Each person vividly remembers every time they did dishes, laundry, cleaning, errands. But they don't notice as much when their partner does the same tasks. So both people genuinely feel like they're carrying more of the load. This creates resentment. You think your partner is lazy or doesn't appreciate your effort. Your partner thinks the same about you. You're both working hard but both feeling undervalued because egocentric bias makes you overestimate your own contribution and underestimate theirs. Group projects at work or school show this perfectly. Ask everyone on a team to estimate their percentage contribution. The total will be like 140% or more. Everyone genuinely believes they did more than their share. They remember all their own work, all their own ideas, all the times they helped others. But they don't fully see everyone else's work happening. So everyone feels like they carried the team when actually contributions were probably more equal than anyone realizes. Credit and blame get distorted by egocentric bias. When something goes well, you remember your contributions clearly and feel like you deserve significant credit. When something goes poorly, you remember all the context and circumstances that affected your actions, so you don't feel as much at fault. But for other people, you judge their successes as less impressive and their failures as more blameworthy because you didn't have access to all their context and effort. Arguments and conflicts are made worse by egocentric bias. You remember all the times you tried to compromise or be reasonable. You remember all the ways you've been patient and understanding. So when there's a conflict, you genuinely feel like you're being more fair and the other person is being stubborn. But the other person feels exactly the same way about themselves. Both people think they're the reasonable one. Both are convinced the other person is being difficult, and egocentric bias makes both perspectives feel completely valid from the inside. memory of conversations gets skewed. You remember what you said more clearly than what others said. You remember your good points and your reasonable arguments. The other person's points fade faster from memory. So later you think you made better arguments and they were less convincing, when actually you're just remembering your own contributions better. Parenting shows this bias clearly. Each parent thinks they do more of the child care, more of the emotional labor, more of the sacrificing. Both feel underappreciated by the other. Both genuinely believe they're right because they're living their own experience fully while only partially observing their partner's experience. Even driving behavior shows egocentric bias. You think you're a better driver than average. Most people think this, which is mathematically impossible. You remember all the times you drove carefully and other drivers were reckless. You don't remember your own mistakes as clearly because you have context and excuses for them, but you just see other drivers' mistakes without that context. So how do you overcome egocentric bias? How do you see situations more fairly instead of overestimating your own role? First, actively look for others' contributions. Make it a deliberate practice to notice and acknowledge what others are doing. Don't just track your own effort. Track others' effort too. This fights the natural imbalance where you automatically notice your own actions more. Second, ask others about their perspective and actually listen. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. When someone says they're doing a lot or feeling overwhelmed, believe them even if you can't see all their work. They have access to their full experience just like you have access to yours. Third, assume you're overestimating your contribution. If you think you do 60% of housework, the real number is probably closer to 50 or even 40%. Egocentric bias is so strong that you should automatically adjust your self-assessments downward. Fourth, keep external records. If you're arguing about who does more, actually track it for a week. Write down every task each person does. External data helps correct the bias because it doesn't rely on biased memory and perception. Fifth, give others credit explicitly and often. Combat egocentric bias by deliberately over-acknowledging others. Thank your partner for things they do. Recognize teammates' contributions. This helps counteract the natural tendency to underappreciate others while overappreciating yourself. Sixth, remember everyone has egocentric bias, including you. When someone says they feel underappreciated or like they're doing more than their share, don't dismiss it. They're experiencing the same bias you are. Take their perspective seriously, even when it conflicts with yours. Egocentric bias is making you overestimate your own importance, your own contributions, and your own reasonableness in every situation. You're not special for having this bias. Everyone has it. But that's exactly the problem. When everyone thinks they're doing more than they are, everyone feels underappreciated and everyone judges others unfairly. This destroys relationships, creates resentment, and makes collaboration difficult. You genuinely believe you're pulling more weight than you are. You genuinely feel like others aren't doing their fair share, and they feel exactly the same way about you, with equal conviction. Understanding egocentric bias doesn't make it disappear, but it helps you question your own perceptions. When you feel like you're doing more than everyone else, remember that's probably the bias talking. When you feel underappreciated, remember others might be contributing more than you notice. When you think you're being reasonable and others are being difficult, remember they probably feel the same way. The next time you're in a conflict or feeling resentful about unequal contributions, pause and consider egocentric bias. Are you really doing as much more as you think? Are others really doing as little as it seems? The answer is probably that everyone is doing more than others realize and less than they think they are. Fight egocentric bias by deliberately looking for others' contributions, by tracking things externally instead of trusting biased memory, and by giving people credit even when their work is less visible to you. That's how you break free from the distorted perspective that makes you the hero of every story. Subscribe to discover more social biases distorting how you see yourself and others.